I am Rebecca Ryan King, and usually I have speech production tips or elicitation tips or phonological intervention therapy tips, but today I want to give you some ideas on how to incorporate a phonological awareness activity that I use with children who have difficulties producing polysyllabic words. So a polysyllabic word is a word that has 3 or more syllables. Think words like elephant, kangaroo, buffalo, cucumber. And I have some students at the moment and they have weak syllable deletion. So they are deleting a weak syllable, which is like a stress, a weak syllable within a polysyllabic word. So I'll give you some examples. So in a word like banana, the b, it's a weak syllable, and na, they are more stressed. So that b is being deleted. Potato is another one. The p is a weak syllable, and the tato, they are more stressed within the word. Weak syllables can happen and occur within words as well. It's not just at the start. So when I have a child and they are deleting this weak syllable, I don't just want to drill polysyllabic words, I don't just want to drill potato. I want to make sure that they can perceive and hear that weak syllable, because it makes me concerned that they are at risk for not using them when they start to read and spell. If they are not aware of that sound, if they can't quite perceive that syllable within that word or at the start of the word, then that's how they'll always be saying that word. And when we learn to spell, a really great strategy is to break a long word down, like banana, and you say that word and you spell the banana. So I want to make sure my little ones can hear it. So these are my 4 favorite activities for this. So the first one is Lego bricks. I love Lego bricks because you can have long pieces and short pieces, and I actually use these to represent the weak and the strong stresses within those polysyllabic words. So as I mentioned, it's usually those weak ones that my students at the moment have difficulties perceiving and then saying. So if they were going to say banana, they would say nana, and potato would be tato, and elephant would be elphant. So they're just not perceiving and they're not saying that weak syllable. So by actually showing them and giving them a visual of the syllables, it really, really helps them. So I might model something like banana, and then I'll see if they can copy me. Now, often if I did this without providing a model, the child would go, na, and then they'd look at this third one. And that is very, very powerful. It's a very powerful learning moment for that child, because they stop and they realize, I'm supposed to have said another syllable within there. So I like using some visuals as a self-awareness. And then once they say that, I'll move it off to the side. Let's do the next word. Computer. Let's do the next word. It's kangaroo, which has a different stress pattern. Kangaroo. So that is something nice. Once the child earns Lego, I let them build something at the end. My second activity are these magnets. I really like them because, again, you've got long and you've got short little magnets. I like the ability to connect. So if I had a word like elephant, these don't work well on a table, so I'd usually do this on the floor. I would have these on my table and we would click them. So we'd say elephant. My kids love magnets. These are very, very, very addictive. And again, I really like to use the sticks and the balls to represent the different weak and strong syllable stresses. A really easy, simple way to demonstrate syllables in words and to help my students is just to get some markers. I either draw circles on paper. On my desk is my favorite, because you can draw on my desk and wipe it off if I use these whiteboard markers, and I'll have kids tap them out. Tapping is a really favorite activity of mine. It's actually probably the first one I'll go to, because I know it can be quite exciting to get Lego and magnets, and I don't want to take away from the activity. So often I'll just have some circles here, and it's very easy for me to draw on an extra circle to represent another syllable. So we'll just tap our finger and see how many we can get. So it would be like elephant, cucumber, pineapple. That's a really nice task. My last activity idea is to use a drum. Now, this isn't something I do first off because a lot of the times if I'm drumming and saying syllables, it is hard to hear me. See, it's kind of hard. So this is something I'll bring out. Or we might have a play at it at the end of an activity just for some fun. But for at the beginning, when I really want to make sure that the child can perceive and hear all those syllables in the words, this isn't my first task. So what you can do is you can hold up your hands to represent the number of syllables. So if it was hippopotamus, hippopotamus, and then we might do it again with this, hippopotamus, and then it might be a word like helicopter, 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 and then I would take away my hands and not show them and see if they could figure out the syllables on their own, and I'm hearing them. So if it's a word like binoculars, binoculars. The one thing I'm going to say, and just to be careful of when you're using a drum and make sure you do it at the end or when you really know that the child has some strong sound awareness, is that often I find that sounds within the syllables can be omitted. So binoculars might be binoculars and you can't hear the k, or computer might be computer, so not the com. So you really have to make sure that you can hear this child and make sure that they're not deleting sounds within the syllables. And often I find it's the final sound within a syllable, like computer. Kangaroo is another good one. I might hear like kangaroo, kangaroo, and it's not the kanga. So just make sure before you use the drums, because I know they're really fun, that the child was able to perceive the sounds within the words and say them, and they're not changing them or deleting them. I hope that gives you some extra ideas if you're working a child with weak syllable deletion, or just with a child who has difficulties saying polysyllabic words. Leave some comments in here if you're an SLP and you've got other ideas. I think it'll be great to get a thread going so that we can share all our different ideas and different ways that we can support our students, not only with their speech production, but with their phonological awareness.